Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. We have got some news for you today on this Monday evening. We've got reports that Harry Gray is set to sign a deal at Leeds United, which would be absolutely fantastic news because we know the importance of keeping the Gray dynasty at the club, and also just to get a really promising young player to be signed to Leeds United would be massively important. We've also been linked to a player called Marlon Gomes, who is a midfield player, plays for Shakhtar Donetsk, 21 years old, Brazilian midfielder. So we're going to talk about that as well. And also, if we've got time, I do want to discuss, this probably won't have time today, but I do want to discuss at some time, what is Leeds United's best 11 at this moment in time? Because there's arguments over should Biel start, there's arguments over Tanaka should start in the midfield, there's arguments over up front as well, there's arguments in goal, there's arguments all over the place right now. So I think we need to iron them out in a video. So it might not have time today, because there is quite a bit to want to talk about in terms of Harry Gray and in terms of Marlon Gomes, but at some point this week we will get into that as well. But I hope you're all well on this Monday morning, of course. It is the start of a new week. Unfortunately, Leeds United don't play this time or this weekend, so it will be an international break. But obviously, we naturally always have content in the national break talking about Leeds United because there's always stuff to talk about. And I think the best place to start with all this is going to be the Harry Gray deal. So basically, Graham Smythe was talking today and suggesting that actually Harry Gray will sign a new deal in the next week. It'll probably be announced next week now, which will take him for the club for another 2 years, I believe, because he'll only be 17. I think he's still 16, but he'll only be 17. And when you're 17 or 17 or young, you can't sign an agreement that's basically less than you can't sign an agreement that's more than 2 years. So it will be a 2-year deal for Harry Gray, of course. But that does keep him at the club, and I think that it's important that we get Harry Gray signed down. This is a guy with ample potential. Obviously, we know Spurs have been linked with him, where his brother Archie's, of course, at. And we know there's been loads of clubs sniffing around Harry Gray. I bet, to be honest, he's had the pick of all the academies in the country. Obviously, the fact that he's a Gray does help in keeping players. But I think this is a massive positive, not just in terms of Harry Gray and keeping him, but actually for the foreseeable future for Leeds United, of course, with our academy. Because the more good players you've got in the academy, like it is with your first team, the more other good youngsters will hopefully be able to attract as well to the club. So it's massively important that we do get as many of these players over the line and keeping them at the club because, as I said, naturally, like when players want to move on, like Rafinha wants to move on to Barcelona, naturally, if you're one of the better teams and one of the better academies, naturally players will want to come and play for you. So, you know, so one of the reasons Man City have managed over recent years to recruit so many top players and why all academy players seem to want to go to Man City is because they've got fantastic success at underage level. Their under-21s team or under-23 teams are absolutely fantastic. They win the Premier League 2 every single season. Obviously, the best young players want to play in the best teams. So, of course, Leeds United keeping around a real talent and one of the better players in the Premier League 2 at this moment in time, one of the best number 9s in Premier League 2 is massive. But it's also massive, obviously, we know, which is stuff we don't want to talk about as such, but stuff like the PSR, the fact that he will be pure profit. I know we want to keep him and I want to keep Harry Gray. We want to keep the Gray dynasty at the football club, of course we do. But we know what the power of Archie Gray gave us when he left. I mean, the club was basically going to break FFP unless we start Archie Gray. This is something Graham Smith was talking about this summer about the fact that 40 million we got for Archie Gray just kept us in that threshold for that first season we've been relegated. So again, massively important that we do keep Harry Gray down because it might be a similar situation like if we go down next year. Fingers crossed we don't, but if we do go down, he might be a player we have to sell on at some point to obviously keep everything going, which is massively important why we obviously keep him at the club, because we know the value that young players have in the game now, because we know, well, that's just the way of the land at this moment in time, isn't it, with the pure profit PSR system. It's just so vital that you keep these players around as long as you can. And as I said, naturally, it's attracting new players to the club is something that's really important for Leeds United and something we need to work on. We should, if we're being totally honest, have a budget every single year of this is how much we're going to spend on our academy, not just in terms of playing squad. Like I think under Victor Orta, we sort of looked at different players, didn't we? Like we brought in Cody Drama, we brought in Joe Gellart, we brought in Sam Greenwood. None of these have actually worked really. I think Gellart was probably the closest to working. But we did actually have seen under Bielsa as well, deemed to have more emphasis on the youth academy. And I think since the 49ers come in, I think of all things that they've done a lot well at the Leeds United so far, I don't think that the priority into youth has been so important to them. I know obviously our priority right now is the short term, making sure we stay in this league, but we're going to have to have an action plan at some point in terms of getting more money into the academy, getting better training facilities. I know they've done stuff at Thorpe Arch, but can we go to that next level? Because even if you look in terms of the Thorpe Arch, or in terms of Leicester's training ground, Leicester in recent years have basically made one of the best training grounds in the country. It's absolutely unbelievable. And since that point, they've managed to attract so many better young players and keep hold of some of the best young talent in the country. Like, they've got a lad starting at the moment for them, Jeremy Monger, who's 16 years old, who they've managed to keep round, playing in the Premier League at 15 years old last year. But when he's got options all over the globe, that's what Leeds United need to do. We need to have similar players. That obviously we're hoping Harry Gray turns into that as well. Of course we are. But let's if we can build a great training ground, if we can get a team together full of players that have been in a training ground, we can be full of players, the under 21 players who are fantastic and add a lot to the under 21 side. We can definitely move this whole our recruitment policy up, get a better youngsters in, and obviously help the club in the multitudes of ways that having a really good youth academy we've seen has done for certain clubs. So that's massively important. It's massively important, especially in terms of even the transfer fees that players go for now, because everything's so expensive. Of course, if you can get a worldie that comes through your academy, like we had with Archie Gray, like Leeds have had a lot in the past, likes of Lewis Cook all these years ago, it's massively important for you because it saves you buying these players. And then also when they've got the resale value on top of it, it's absolutely unbelievably important that you do that. So we do need to, I understand why the 49ers, I think, have probably put it on hold in recent years, because of course it's just massively important. That we just, last year it was massively important, we got promoted. This year it's massively important, we just stay in the division. So all the funds almost have to go to the short term. But I do think if we stay in the league this summer, we've got to then start building a policy of bringing through youth players and putting as much money as possible into the academy. Jaggy Babs says, I think we could have done a lot more with the ones we had. Like Bay and Crew, already seen what's happened with Leif Davis and Cresswell. Yeah, exactly. I think under the 49ers, when we look at sort of their failures, I don't think there's many. I think they've done a lot of good stuff. I think the summer transfer window could be questioned. I think it was questioned by me at the time. But one thing that they've definitely failed on is the sort of promoting of youth and making sure that we've got a real youth system going through. Like the failures with Charlie Cresswell are just completely there to see. He's a player that's going to probably end up going to a Premier League club for over £20 million, and we sell him for what, a couple million quid. That's completely negligence in terms of what you should be doing with young players. So we have seen that we've got a sort of progression plan for youth players coming through this thing. The likes of Cresswell, like you said, the likes of Leif Davis obviously come through the academy, the likes of Archie Gray. But the Archie Gray has been the only one we've really profited on in the most recent years, which was disappointing. And I said it's because obviously we're sort of looking at the short term at this moment in time. Obviously, Leif Davis was slightly before. It's because we're looking at the short term. But at some point, that's going to have to change, and we're actually going to have to look at a sort of more long-term strategy and start putting more money into the youth academy and spending certain money on players like we were doing at one point, as I said, with the likes of Charlie Cresswell, with the likes of Lewis Bate, with the likes of Cody Dram, with the likes of Sam Gruber. Now, as I said, none of these have been massive successes, but the more you do this, the more players you bring in. You only need one big hitter, like we saw with Archie Gray, and you can easily quadruple the amount of money you spend. So it's just such an important thing now, especially for if you're Man United or Man City and your turnover's through the roof. However, the turnover's getting to that point, but if your turnover's through the roof, you can afford not to have to do this. But although Man City do it really well, by the way, and the best in the country, but you can afford to not do this and just buy all the top players all the time. When you're a club like Leeds at the moment in time, with our turnover obviously being lower than theirs, you've got to rely on youth academy. It's so important for generating money into your football club. So we've got. It's something we've just got to work on in the next few years for sure. We've got to start putting more money towards the youth setup for sure. Because even if you do put more money into the youth setup and you get yourself a better training ground, that's good for attracting first team players as well. Because if you look at some of our failings, I think in the summer, I think as we know, Leeds United really struggled in the summer, attracting players to the football club. We saw it with Pajau. I mean, the list could go on. I could name it all. I've named it 100 times, the amount of players we lost out on. Maybe if we had a better training ground, we would have maybe been able to track some of these players. I'm not saying we would have done, but it's not going to not help us, is it? It's going to help naturally having a better training ground. And when you're sort of neck and neck with clubs, you need to get any advantage to get some of these top talent to come to your football club. And having that better training ground could only help the younger players like we've seen at Leicester, but also it should help us get senior players through the door as well. I mean, nobody wants to work, even me and you, who obviously work in different environments, nobody wants to work in a dump, do they? Everyone wants to work in the best facilities possible, the best offices, the best trading facilities, the best lounges, the best saunas. Naturally, as humans, we're going to want that. So it's naturally going to help you attract talent. It's massively important. It really is. Really lost out to who, or is this all paper talk? We haven't lost out to anyone. No, we have lost out to, in the summer, mate, we lost out to loads of players. Pajau, we bidded for Pajau categorically, so we can't say we didn't go. We did. Yes, I understand, Colin, that people do spin stuff for paper talk, 100%. And we always talk on this channel, by the way. There's so many different ways that things can happen with a transfer, and the reason it gets put in the press. It can be agent talk. It can be the player wanting to move from his club that he's at. It can be the player wanting a new contract to the club he's at. But there's also times when actually it's because Leeds United actually want players. And like we bidded for Pajau, mate. So, I mean, we definitely wanted Pajau. And there's another number of players that obviously we missed out on as well. As we know, but I think we were linked with Callum Awenda, who obviously going to Forest, who we bidded for as well. So I mean, there was countless players that we went in for and bidded for. I don't think we're bidding. I agree that sometimes if we're not going to bid and there's just interest there, maybe we weren't going in for them players. I'm not saying all the players that we were linked in the summer we were fully in for. That is not what I'm saying, but we did miss out on targets in the summer for sure. We 100% did. I mean, we even said that Calvert-Lewin wasn't our first choice number 9, didn't we? It'll probably get easier when there's less speculation around Far. Yeah, I think so. I think when we had Bielsa in charge, that was obviously a really good time for our academy, because he obviously put a lot of time into building our under-23s academy up and stuff like that, which was obviously massively important. So I think I agree, Jaggy Babs, in terms of when you've got a stable team and you've got a stable environment at the football club and there's not as much speculation going on, I do think it's easier to attract people over the line for sure. I definitely do. Anyway, let's move on to Marlon Gomes. I think I've covered everything I wanted to do in terms of the recruitment and in terms of young players. Let me go through my notes, but I'm pretty sure we're just about there. Yeah, we are. But yeah, let's move on to Marlon Gomes, who is a 21-year-old midfielder. Currently plays for, and this, by the way, this might be agent talk, Colin. I'll break that down in a second for you, mate. But Sportsman have been reporting today that Leeds United are interested in Marlon Gomes, who is a 21 midfield player, plays for Shakhtar, and reported value around about the £26 million mark. This one, however, is not expected to be a January deal. This is more a summer addition, I would expect, and that's what it sort of says in the report, which makes a bit more sense. In terms of his stats, he's played 5 starts this year. He hasn't got any goals or assists. Last season, 15 starts, managed to get 3 goals and 3 assists, I believe. So a young and up-plumbing player from Shakhtar, similar to what we saw with Kevin. Obviously, the difference is he's a midfielder. My current take on this is that I don't think there's any truth in it. I think this is, when Colin says it's just paper talk, this is his perfect example. I do not think we want him. This is the guy who's been linked to Man United. He's been linked to basically every Premier League club in the summer. I think he wants out, and I think his agent wants a big deal, and I think he's linking us all to the big clubs in the country to get himself a move. I'm convinced on this story. One, I don't think we'll be going for a 21-year-old midfielder. In terms of, I don't think we'll go for that age profile. I don't think we'll go for a midfielder. Like, I look at where we're strongest, in my opinion, at this moment in time, and where there's the most competition. Midfield's got to be one of them roles. I mean, we've got Ampadu, Tanaka, Stack, and Longstaff. There's 4 midfielders there for 3 positions, and different people in the chat and different people on the channel have talked about different players coming in. Like, I would argue that Stack should come out at the moment. So, but if Stack's wouldn't be one of our best bench options if he does come out, as is Tanaka, we've got competition in midfield. We don't need another midfielder. I think if you were recruiting a midfielder, maybe look at a number 10 next summer if you want to go into a different style. But I do quite like the sort of number 6 and 2 box crashing 8s that we've got at the moment. So I quite like the style. But if you are going to go anywhere, maybe an attacking midfielder or maybe a number 6. But I don't think he's either of them. So I think he's more of a number 8, which so we don't need. We've got Longstaff, we've got Tanaka, and we've got Stack as our 3 number 8s for 2 positions. I do not think that's the most. The most priority position, in my opinion. All leads that way into him says, glad we didn't end up with Uche. He was boxing Tarkowski this weekend. Yeah, he's not started unbelievably well at Palace, has he? I do think it has still been a nice option to add to the ranks. He's so versatile. He can play sort of number 10. I think he can play up front, but I don't think he would do. He obviously can play the 6 as well and the 8. That's his thing, and he's unbelievably versatile, strong, powerful. But he hasn't quite worked for him at Palace. Although I would say Palace have got a ridiculously good team at this moment in time. I mean, there's a reason they are where they are in the league, and I don't think they deserve to lose at all at Everton this weekend. So I don't know. I think he might come good. Maybe not. Maybe it might not work at Palace. That might be too of a high standard for him. But I do think there's probably a player in Uche, if I'm being totally honest. So yeah, as I said, I don't think there's much in this Marlon Gomes story. As I said, we've talked about this on the channel. If we are going anywhere this summer, we need to be avoiding the midfield, in my opinion. Obviously, we want depth everywhere, but you've got to prioritise, haven't you? And for me, I'm looking at the attack next summer. I'm looking at the fullbacks probably. I think our best positions at the moment in time in terms of competition is probably goalkeeper. You've got Darlow and Perri there. I think people argue either way. I think I'd probably go back to Perri, but we'll talk about that probably in a later video. I think at centre-half, especially on the left-hand side, you've got Biol there, you've got Strout there. I think that's really good competition. I think at right-back, to be fair, we've got Justin and Bogle. I think Bogle's the number 1, but we've got decent defensive support in number 2. I'd worry at left-back if Goodmanson goes down. We haven't got the support there. I'd potentially worry in the number 6 role a bit, but not as much. We've still got Gruev there, who's not the worst depth in the world, can do a job. Or you could move potentially Stack into there, who's played the 6 before. You could maybe move Longstaff into there. There is options in the number 6 role, but where I think we massively struggle for me is on the right hand side, and I think I think number 1 is the right hand side position, but also we need depth on the left hand side. If Okafor went down, that would be a nightmare for us. If DCL went down, for me, that would be a nightmare for us. We've got to, in the summer transfer window, for me, if we do get to the point and we do stay in the division, the priority will not be a midfielder. It's got to be the attack, and we've got to put some serious money this year into the attack. We spent what, 20 million quid in our attack last summer. I think this year you need to spend at least treble that, if I'm being honest. I think you need, and obviously last summer a lot of the focus was around sort of under £20 million players and just bolstering the whole squad with experienced players. I think next summer you're looking for more sort of attacking signings, but actually going into the market and really sort of stretching the boat and going for them statement additions at like the £30 million players. Like I'd be looking at a few £30 million players this summer, rather than the whole complete rehaul that we did this summer, bringing 10 players. I'd maybe be looking at bringing 4 or 5. But actual top draw who you're going to start straight away and go straight into the team. Not looking at depth options like Justin. Maybe a new left back as depth. But I definitely want a starting right winger. I think there's arguments maybe you want to start in number 9 at this moment in time. So I do think there are 2 positions that we've got to go get starters, and naturally a right winger and a number 9 is going to be massively important, in my opinion. Surprising me how much Fark has gone off Perot. I'm not sure actually. I think I said this in a video last I think maybe over a week ago now, when we were talking about Pro and why he won't play. He never actually wanted Pro, if you remember, Jaggy Babs. He went all the way back to when we were looking at him, and we signed him. I think it was a club signing. Like, do you remember that summer he was linked with Cameron Archer for ages, and then we ended up going for Pro later on. It was sort of like, Pro's there, he hadn't signed a new deal at Swansea, let's just go grab him. Whereas I don't think it was actually his. Obviously, it's worked, and Pro's a decent striker at Championship level, as we know, probably the best striker in the league last year, getting 19 goals. I don't think he was. I actually think Sargent is a better number 9, but regardless, he obviously was useful last year for sure. He did a really good job for us. But I never really felt that Fark, it was his number 1. Like, even when he came into the club, do you remember, he didn't play in the number 9 role at first. He had Rutter up front and Perot was playing number 10. It was all a bit mad. And then he switched it round. And then even last January, he went for Cameron Archer again, obviously to sort of replace Perot in the transfer window as well. So I've never been convinced that Fark's enjoyed the profile of Perot. I think he's made it work because Perot's at a certain level for the Championship, but I never thought it was his number 1 person that he wanted, in my opinion, for that number 9 role. Recruitment team need to get it right. Can't afford an Augustine nightmare again. Yeah, it's a different recruitment team though, isn't it? I think this summer, if I'm being honest, when we look back, I was really frustrated by this summer, as you lot know, who probably watched the channel. I didn't think it was like as horrendous as people were saying. Like, some people had it like a 2 out of 10 window. I probably had it more in the middle, about a 6. Because I think a lot of the window, if I look back, wasn't to do with what we did do. Like, I think the players we've bought have actually been pretty good signings. It's a lot to do for me what we didn't do, in terms of we didn't have the money. And it was to do with, for me, we should have moved some players on, and then we should use that money to put into more players, rather than just sort of just accepting what we've got and then just spending the 100 million quid. I would have liked to see maybe a Strout go out the door, maybe Perot go out the door and replace these players with different players. I know Strout's made a really good start to the season, but I thought in terms of the PSR profit it can give us with him being homegrown, it would have been a better option to move the likes of Pascal on and get the money from him and move Perot on. That's what I was annoyed about with the recruitment team. But I looked at the signings they actually made. The likes of Goodmanson, I think it's been a really good signing for us. I like Longstaff in the midfield. I think he's been a really good signing. I still think Stack will be a really good signing for us. Okafor, for me, looks really good on the left-hand side as well. I think DCL's done a good job up front as well, in my personal opinion. I know people disagree on that, but I think he has. I think the recruitment's not been bad this summer. I think Biol will eventually get himself into the team and be a good sign. And I do actually think Perri will come good as well. So I don't. For me, it's never been about what we didn't, what we did do. It's more about what we didn't do. That I am a bit of a sort of, I don't know. I think was a bit of a failure. 49's rep has taken a big hit with Rangers. It's a bit concerning, especially with the window we had. Yeah, but it's a completely different team. The 49ers by name, but I don't think it's not the same board at all. We're not sharing a board. They've got their own board, and we've sort of our own board. So I agree with what you're saying, Jaggy Babs, in terms of it has been a nightmare up at Rangers. I mean, they've still only won one Scottish League game this year. It's been a complete nightmare, but it is a completely different recruitment team up there. It is a really new recruitment team. Quite new to the channel. What do you think of Ampadu as the captain? I think he's the best. I think he's the best person for the job. Interested. I've never been asked that actually, but I think he's the best person for the job. I even looked what he was doing with the young lad at the weekend. Of course, just fantastic. Like that's exactly what a Leeds United captain should be. Because yes, it's important to be fantastic on the pitch, and I think he is a leader. And I think you look at our record away from home, especially, or even in general with him out in the team, and it's baffling. It's so good. And I remember. One of the times I remember with Ampadu where I thought he was a fantastic captain was last year. We played Coventry away. I don't know if people remember this. We played Coventry away. And I think we're making on a sub. I can't remember who's coming on as the sub. But when we're making a sub, Ampadu comes up, runs straight over to the touchline and hypes him up before he comes on the pitch. And again, it just shows leadership quality. And I think he's been fantastic. And I think the numbers speak for themselves in terms of with him and without him in the team, the difference in level and the difference in sort of... and the difference in winning ratio is through the roof with him in the team. So I really like Ampadu as a captain. I think he's really good. And as I said, the stuff he's doing off the pitch with the young lad as well, who's had a really hard time, of course, he's just fantastic. And it's exactly what footballers should be doing, in my opinion. Yes, it's important what they do on the pitch for sure, but it's also they've got for me a responsibility to do stuff off the pitch as well. I remember I know we don't like him, but I remember Roy Keane having a massive thing with Alex Ferguson about players not signing the ball. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that story. And I think there is a duty of care as a footballer, not to be the most, but to be a role model at times. I think that is important because a lot of kids look up to a lot of professional footballers. So I think what Ampadu does off the pitch is, in terms of getting involved with the local hospitals and stuff, I think it's massively important. So I think he's done a really good job as captain. I really like him. And also when I look through the team at this moment in time, I think Longstaff's probably got leadership qualities in him. And I think we've seen that. I think DCL's got leadership qualities in him. But they're both new signings. I don't look at anyone in the old team, really, and think there's not more of an obvious captain. I know Strauch's obviously took the burden at times. I don't think he's quite as good as a captain, in my opinion. I don't think we've seen the best results with Leeds United with Strauch as captain as we have with Ampadu as captain. But so I do think he's the man for the job, mate. Yeah. Anyway, should we wrap it up there? Because for some reason today I'm losing my voice big time. I can feel it like getting more and more. It might not be red, but it feels like it's getting more and more croaky. I'm not quite sure why. Hopefully I ain't got that new virus because there's a thing going around, isn't there? I think there's a new strain of COVID. That'd be a nightmare if I've got that. I really hope I don't. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the live stream as always. We'll be back tomorrow, and then Wednesday, unfortunately, will not be a stream, but there will be a video as normal. But yeah, I shall see you all later, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, because obviously it's a bit quiet with being in such a break, but I hope I've sort of made your evening better if I can do, and a bit more Leeds United news, of course. And I'll see you later, everybody. Bye for now. And also, as I said, if you can do like and subscriptions and all that, it's massively helpful. I'm only a small channel, so it's means the world. It's not like a Mr. Beast video or something. Cheers, lads.